Good morning, all of you. Welcome you all in this platform of StudyIQ OPSC channel. So today in this session, we'll discuss inflation and monetary policy. Those who are online, please confirm and share this session with your friends as well. Confirm karibe. Audio and video both are working fine. Okay. So good morning, Mahi Teja. Fine. So let's start discussing inflation and monetary policy MCQs. So we'll discuss important MCQs. Thank you, Mahi Teja, for confirmation. So let's start. Which of the following best defines inflation? Which of the following best defines inflation? Inflation kahaku kuha jaye? Inflation definition कहले हमें कौन बुझू? Is sustained increase in the general price level of goods and services in an economy over a period of time. Okay, is sustained increase, a continuous increase in the general price level. When we say general price level of goods and services in an economy over a period of time. So answer is what? Answer होची आपनकर A ही answer होगा आपनकर. But second जब देखिए temporary fall in prices due to decrease in demand. Then the inflation होची sustained increase in price. So the increase in price but at a decreasing rate. Increase in price but at a decreasing rate. That is disinflation. मन रखते हुए increase in price but at a decreasing rate. That is known as disinflation. Increase in price but at a decreasing rate. That is known as disinflation. So disinflation को मन रखते हुए deflation. Deflation means decrease in the price level. Okay, decrease in the production of goods and services. That is deflation. So deflation is the stage just before the recession. या जोटा का हमें डिप्रेशन बोली भी कहो. ओके, डिप्रेशन बोली भी कहो. फाइन. तेणु एठी आंसर ए होबो. नेक्स्ट देखिबा एंड डिवैल्यूएशन ऑफ करेंसी इन फॉरेन एक्सचेंज. एटा होची आपनकर कोन ना डिवैल्यूएशन ऑफ करेंसी यानी कि डोमेस्टिक करेंसी विल बी वीकर. डोमेस्टिक करेंसी विल बी वीकर. ये होची आपनकर रिलेटेड टू फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रिजर्व. एठी कोनोसी काम यार नाही. And this is due to जो आपनकर fiscal policy. तेणु यार भी कोनोसी काम नहीं. So inflation answer होची A. Next, consider the following statement about the disinflation. Disinflation just मु आपन कहूथली. It refers to a slowdown in the rate of inflation. Refers to slowdown in the rate of inflation. A slowdown in the rate of inflation रा माने कौन? ना increase in price. Increase in price but at a decreasing rate. डिक्रीजिंग रेट यानी कि जो दी रेट ऑफ चेंज आपण देखिबे रेट ऑफ चेंज इन प्राइस लेवल दैट इज डिक्लाइनिंग. रेट ऑफ चेंज इन प्राइस लेवल दैट इज सिंपली डिक्लाइनिंग. जोटा का हमें कहबा कोन डिसइन्फ्लेशन बोली हमें कहबा. रेट ऑफ चेंज इन प्राइस दैट इज डिक्लाइनिंग. डिसइन्फ्लेशन बोली ताको हमें कहबा. सो इट रेफर्स टू ए स्लो डाउन इन द रेट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन. रेफर्स टू ए स्लो डाउन इन द रेट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन. ओके, it indicates negative inflation or falling price level. Negative inflation or falling price level. Falling price level और negative inflation जदि आपण देखिबे सेटा आपण करो disinflation हबनी. सेटा आपण करो depression आडू को पळेबो. Depression आडू. Okay, disinflation is always harmful for economic growth. Disinflation माने कोन? Inflation slow down. Okay, inflation 6.57% रे बढ़ुतला. इन्फ्लेशन वर्तमान मॉडरेट अमाउंट रे अछि 6%, 5.5%. ओके, सो रेट ऑफ इंक्रीज इन प्राइस लेवल हैज स्लोअर डाउन. तेणु ऑब्वियसली दैट इज नॉट हार्मफुल फॉर एवरी टाइम. स्लोअरिंग ऑफ इन रेट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन. तेणु ये भी आपनकर इनकरेक्ट. सो आंसर इज ओनली द फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट दैट इज वन ओनली ए. बुझी होची कॉन्सेप्ट. इन्फ्लेशन, डिसइन्फ्लेशन, डिप्रेशन, ओके ये तीनोटी भितर डिफरेंस अच्छी जदि बुझी पार ना स्टिल आप कमेंट सेक्शन में कहे मु रिपीट भी करि परिबी। ठीक अच्छी नेक्स्ट देखिबा assertion reasoning hyper inflation is considered harmful for the economy सेशन को टिके शेयर करंतु hyper inflation is considered harmful for the economy it reduces the value of currency rapidly and erodes saving okay what is the meaning of this hyperinflation inflation is increasing at a rapid rate hyperinflation okay considered harmful for the economy काहेकि harmful हबो देखिबा जदि higher amount रे inflation बड़ी बड़ी चलला higher amount रे increase in the price of goods and services then automatically what happens let me tell you number 1 demand for goods and services will come down purchasing power will come down with the same money you can buy lesser goods and services so the lesser goods and services alla decrease in demand obviously there is a cut in the production by the producers there is a cut in production by the producers that means producer will start lay off या cut down the production ता माने आपण को unemployment देखा जिबार chances अछि unemployment देखा जिवो lack of demand okay ये आपण को leads to कोन ना depression आडू को जिवो right प्रथमे disinflation हबो या तापर डिप्रेशन आड़ को जीवा स्टार्ट करिवो इकोनॉमी जदि हाइपर इन्फ्लेशन गोटे टाइम रहइबो धीरे धीरे डिप्रेशन आड़ को जीवा डिसइन्फ्लेशन तो हबनी हाइपर इन्फ्लेशन रु डिप्रेशन आड़ को मूव करिवो तनो सेत पे हार्मफुल फॉर द इकोनॉमी सेत पे इन्फ्लेशन इज इन मॉडरेट अमाउंट इज ऑलवेज गुड एवं गोटे स्टेटमेंट जदि आसे डू यू थिंक इन्फ्लेशन इज ऑलवेज बैड फॉर द इकोनॉमी आंसर इज नो not always bad some amount of inflation is required why because some amount of inflation motivates the producer to produce more goods and services in the economy because of increase in profitability because producer is always guided by the profit motive or profitability are you getting my point then first statement hoji hyperinflation is considered harmful for the economy jo achi that is absolutely correct it reduces the value of currency rapidly and erodes saving what is the meaning of this it reduces value of currency means purchasing power of the currency value of currency means purchasing power of the currency and erodes savings the savings you have to the inflation अधिका हला then you will start use your saving amount as well जोटा कमे dissaving बोली कहबा right कारण जति की इनकम अछि ना आपण सेति की अफोर्ड करि पारु नांती निजरो लाइफस्टाइल को लिविंग स्टैंडर्ड को सो यू हैव टू डिसेव योर मनी आपण जति की सेव करथिले ताकू बर्तन यूज करबा स्टार्ट करलेनी सो दैट रिड्यूसेस द वैल्यू ऑफ करेंसी एंड इरोड्स सेविंग तो आंसर आपनकर कोन होबो आंसर होची बोथ ए एंड आर आर ट्रू आर इज द करेक्ट एक्सप्लेनेशन ऑफ ए क्लियर नेक्स्ट देखिबा मैच द फॉलोइंग टाइप्स ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन विथ देयर कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स तीनटा जिनस अछि गोटे अछि स्टैगफ्लेशन आउट अछि क्रीपिंग इन्फ्लेशन आउट अछि गैलोपिंग इन्फ्लेशन ओके क्रीपिंग इन्फ्लेशन गैलोपिंग इन्फ्लेशन स्टैगफ्लेशन मीन्स व्हाट ना हाई इन्फ्लेशन स्टैगफ्लेशन मीन्स व्हाट हाई इन्फ्लेशन प्लस स्टैग्नेशन या stagnant of economy what is the meaning of stagnation या stagnant of the economy stagnant of the economy means the GDP growth is stagnant there is no increase in the employment opportunities okay and high inflation apan ko dekhiba ko miluchi so that means stagflation is the mild increase in the prices of goods and services at 1 to 3% okay and GDP is stagnation or stagnant koi paribe creeping inflation kon creeping inflation creeping माने होची कोन क्रीपिंग माने होची आपण सिंपली कहि परिबे सॉरी स्टैगफ्लेशन होची आपनकर हाई इन्फ्लेशन विथ स्टैग्नेंट ग्रोथ ता माने ए होची आपनकर 2 ओके क्रीपिंग इन्फ्लेशन होची स्लो क्रीपर्स एमते आपण जानिथिबे ना लता गुडी को धीरे धीरे एमती बढ़े सो क्रीपर्स क्रीपिंग इन्फ्लेशन जोटा अछि सेटा होची आपनकर कोन माइल्ड इंक्रीज इन प्राइसेस, माइल्ड इंक्रीज इन इन्फ्लेशन दैट इज 1 to 3%. सो क्रीपिंग इन्फ्लेशन होची बी होची 1 आपनकर, क्रीपिंग इन्फ्लेशन बी होची आपनकर 1. ओके, सेकंड अछि आपनकर गैलोपिंग इन्फ्लेशन. गैलोपिंग इन्फ्लेशन कोन ना जोटा की आपनकर हाई अमाउंट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन 2 to 3% डिजिट रेट्स, हाई अमाउंट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन गैलोपिंग. हाइपर इन्फ्लेशन होची अगेन मोर देन दिस गैलोपिंग. तो एठी आंसर होची आपनकर कोन ना ABC 2 1 3 दैट इज A इज द आंसर. ओके, नेक्स्ट देखिबा व्हिच आर द फॉलोइंग करेक्ट्स डिस्क्राइब्स रिफ्लेशन. व्हिच आर द फॉलोइंग describes reflation. रिफ्लेशन किए कहि परिबे, आंसर किए करि परिबे. रिफ्लेशन कोन, इन्फ्लेशन देखिले, डिसइन्फ्लेशन देखिले, रिफ्लेशन कांसेप्ट कोन. रिफ्लेशन होची आपनकर a policy induced increase in the price level after a deflationary period. ओके, डिफ्लेशनरी पीरियड यानी कि जोटा कि डिप्रेशन आपण कहि परिबे, स्लो डाउन इन द इकोनॉमी, स्लो डाउन इन द इकोनॉमी, स्लो डाउन इन द सेंस की अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट इंक्रीज होतला, जीडीपी नंबर्स वाज डिक्रीजिंग. ओके, प्राइस लेवल obviously was decreasing. So this all these things were decreasing nature, that is deflationary period जोटा हमें कहूचे. But due to government intervention, due to RBI's intervention, जदि हमें इकोनॉमी को अपवर्ड मूवमेंट डायरेक्शन ने स्टार्ट करेबा या अपवर्ड मूवमेंट रे स्टार्ट करेबा. ओके, दैट इज नोन एज द रिफ्लेशन कहि परिबे. जदि आपण बिजनेस साइकिल देखिथिबे, बिजनेस साइकिल केम था ए टाइप रो था. तो सपोज इकोनॉमी धीरे 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 डाउनवर्ड मूविंग होतला. नाउ ड्यू टू गवर्नमेंट इंटरवेंशन दे स्टार्ट रिवाइविंग द इकोनॉमी, दे स्टार्टेड रिवाइविंग द इकोनॉमी. सेटा को हमें कोन कहबा, सेटा को हमें कहबा रिफ्लेशन. ठीक अछि. सो आंसर इज आपनकर ए. नेक्स्ट देखिबा बाकी फॉल इन द जनरल प्राइस लेवल ये होचे आपनकर डिप्रेशन आपण कहि परिबे. A situation where inflation and unemployment are both low, increase in nominal wage only, ये हवनी आपनकर ए ही आपनकर आंसर. ओके, सी देखि सॉरी 6 देखिबा, 6 नंबर क्वेश्चन. बुझिएला नहीं. ओके, पूर्ण तरह बुझे दूची. देखो तो रिफ्लेशन से कोन कहूची, जदि इकोनॉमी डिप्रेशन रे अछि, सपोज कोविड-19 फल रे, कोविड-19 माने थिबो अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट थिला. ओके, अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट थिला, ग्रोथ रेट नेगेटिव जोन रे थिला. सो काइंड ऑफ डिप्रेशनरी सिचुएशन हमको देखिबा को मिलथला. यानी कि इकोनॉमी इज मूविंग डाउनवर्ड, मास लेवल रे अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट. ओके, जॉबलेस होची, जीडीपी ग्रो करू नाही. सो दीज आर साइन ऑफ व्हाट, डिप्रेशन. सो ड्यू टू गवर्नमेंट इंटरवेंशन, गवर्नमेंट वांट्स टू, ये जो डिप्रेशन डाउनवर्ड मूवमेंट चलता, गवर्नमेंट वांट्स टू रिकवर द इकोनॉमी, गवर्नमेंट वांट्स टू रिकवर द इकोनॉमी. दैट मीन गवर्नमेंट वांट्स टू इंक्रीज द इन्फ्लेशनरी सिचुएशन इंटेंशनली टू रिवाइव द इकोनॉमी फ्रॉम डिप्रेशन. गवर्नमेंट चाहूची इकोनॉमी को रिवाइव करबा पय बाय इंटरवेंशन. केमती ना एक्सपांशनरी मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी, expansionary monetary policy by the RBI, more public expenditure by the government, less tax by the government, so that people will have more money, they will spend more. Kind of depression time re people lost job, people do not have money to spend. तो ये प्रॉब्लम देखिबा को मिले. नेक्स्ट डिमांड पुल इन्फ्लेशन देखिबा. It occurs when aggregate demand exceeds aggregate supply. Aggregate demand exceeds aggregate supply. What is this demand pull inflation? Inflation from the demand side factors. Inflation from the demand side factor. When we say demand side, that means increase in demand for goods and services. Increase in demand for goods and services. Okay, that is demand side factor. So when aggregate demand is greater than the aggregate supply. That means availability of goods and services, that is supply of goods and services, which is less than the aggregate demand or demand for more goods and services, that leads to increase in price. That leads to increase in price. Okay, aggregate demand exceeds aggregate supply, that leads to inflation. Right? Second देखिए, it is usually associated with economic expansion. Usually associated with economic expansion. Obviously, economic expansion हुए, suppose income of the people increased, people will have more money, so chances अछि कोण ना economic expansion होबो, they will demand more goods and services. Obviously, demandful inflation, there is a chance. It can be controlled by increasing public spending. तो कंट्रोल करबा पई we need to reduce public spending. That means we need to adopt contractionary policy. Contractionary policy, be it monetary policy, be it ଆପଣଙ୍କର fiscal policy, but it must be contractionary one. Okay, that means we have to reduce the money supply to control the inflation. So answer is what? 1 and 2. Correct? Next देखिए. Cost push inflation leads to rise in prices due to higher production. Higher production cost. It is usually results from increased demand in the economy. When we say cost push inflation, is the supply side factor or cost side factor, supply side factor or the cost side factor. When we say supply side factor, that means increase in the cost of production. Increase in the cost of production, or you can say increase in the, when we say increase in the cost of production, what a product को produce करिया पाई, what are the factors? Labor, land, capital, entrepreneur. These are the factors. Suppose labor is taking more wage, obviously cost of production will increase. Land is taking more rent, cost of production will increase. Capital is taking more interest, cost of production will increase. And obviously entrepreneur is taking more profit, obviously cost of production is increasing. So when cost of production will increase, automatically that is reflected in the on the price of goods and services. Price will also increase. ତେଣୁ ସେଇଥିପାଇଁ ସେଟାକୁ ଆମେ cost push inflation ବୋଲି କହୁଛେ, due to higher production cost. Okay, ଯେମିତି petrol price ବଢ଼ିଗଲା, petrol price बढ़िला फଳରେ transportation cost will increase, that will be reflected in the increased price of goods and services. Okay, it usually results from increased demand in the economy. Obviously not increased demand in the economy, it's a demand side factor. So answer would be C. Clear? Match the types of inflation with their key features. First होची core inflation. Core inflation कौन ना, core inflation होची excluding food and fuel. Headline inflation जानिथिबे, that includes food and fuel. So core inflation is excluding food and fuel. So A is 2. When we say hyperinflation, very high and uncontrolled one. When we say structural inflation means due to supply side bottlenecks in developing economies. For example, lack of basic infrastructure facilities. Lack of basic infrastructure facilities. So that is structural inflation. So C is 3. Answer is A. Okay. Next, what is stagflation? Stagflation. Stagflation is a situation where prices are rising but output is stagnant or falling. Prices are rising, output, that is GDP. GDP is stagnant or falling. That is stagnation plus inflation, that is stagflation. Clear? ठीक है, B होची आपनकर आंसर. Next, which of the following best characterizes imported inflation? Which of the following characterizes imported inflation. Suppose there is a company who is importing raw material to produce the finished products. So when raw materials price will increase, automatically that will be reflected in the price of the final product. That will be reflected on the prices of the final product. That means due to increase in the raw material, price of the final product will also increase. Right? So this type of inflation, we can call it imported inflation. Example you can take, if you import petroleum products at a higher price, obviously those sectors जो गुड़िक पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट्स को रॉ मटेरियल भाव यूज करूछंदी, the price of those products will increase. That is imported inflation. Okay, so the answer कौन होगा? It is caused by an increase in oil or commodity prices abroad. International market रे जदि price बढ़ी वो, definitely imported inflation को आजिबो. Increasing domestic waste, it is cost push. Done. Next. Consider the following statements about the consumer price index in India. Consumer price index, or what we call the CPI. The first statement. It is released by the National Statistical Office. It is released by the National Statistical Office. Second, CPI includes food, fuel, and services. CPI used by the RBI for the inflation targeting. Answer कौन होगा? When we say CPI, consumer price index, we measure price index from the consumer point of view, and this shows the rate of inflation in the economy. This shows the rate of inflation in the economy, and this is calculated or released by the National Statistical Office under this Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Okay, acha. CPI is different from WPI. CPI is different from WPI. CPI, inflation, measuring inflation from the consumer point of view. WPI is measuring inflation from the producer point of view. When we say CPI is measuring inflation, that is measuring prices of goods and services, whereas WPI only measures inflation or prices of goods. Only measures prices of goods. Okay, so this is one difference. And 2014 onwards, RBI started using CPI as an index for the inflation targeting. Okay, so answer is D, 1213. The wholesale price index does not include services. That is absolutely correct. Now question is why? Product रे अपन देखिए, product रे कौन हुए? We have a producer जिकी product को produce करूँगी, and then that will be distributed to the retailer from where consumer is directly purchasing. So it has two components, गोटे होची producer, और गोटे होची retailer. तो सही जगह अपन देखिए WPI हो या प्रोड्यूसर पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू रे या प्रोडक्ट रे अपन देखिए गोटे प्रोड्यूसर अच्छी गोटे रिटेलर अच्छी. सो यू विल फाइंड ए डिफरेंस बिटवीन द प्राइसेस. बट इन केस ऑफ सर्विसेस अपन कहबे एजुकेशन गोटे सर्विस, हेल्थ इज ए सर्विस, लॉयर्स एडवाइस इज ए सर्विस, डॉक्टर्स कंसल्टेशन इज ए सर्विस. बट डू यू थिंक these services have wholesale price and what we call retail price? Is it so? Obviously not. So this statement is correct. WPI focused on the price movement of goods at the producer level. Okay, producer level, that is again correct. So answer ho jaye both A and R are true. R is the correct explanation of A. Clear hai la concept? Next, CPI combined, WPI and CPI agricultural labor and rural labor. When we say CPI combined, that simply means rural plus urban. CPI combined, rural plus urban. Okay, so CPI combined both rural and urban, so that is A2. B, WPI used WPI that is released by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Ministry of Commerce and Industry. WPI, that is Office of Economic Advisor. Specifically जो देखिए Office of Economic Advisor. CPI AL and CPI RL used to measure inflation from the agricultural and rural labor. ये जो AL होची agricultural labor, ये होची rural labor. Okay. Now this may come to your mind कि CPI combined गोटे अलगा अछि, CPI AL गोटे अलगा अछि, RL गोटे अलगा अछि, CPI rural that is R, CPI urban that is U. That means rural area re what would be the inflation rate, urban area re what would be the rate of inflation, and the combined that shows the whole economy. Fine. Then second, CPI AL, that is agricultural labor. That means when government decides the wage rate in the agricultural sector, then CPI agricultural labor index is generally computed or considered. And when rural labor other than the agricultural labor, seତେବେଳେ सरकार RL को रेफर करते. ओके, सो एठी आपनकर आंसर इज वो A. क्लियर. नेक्स्ट देखिबा, what does the GDP deflator measures? आंसर करिवे. What does the GDP deflator measures? GDP deflator measures कौन measure करे ना? GDP deflator also measures inflation, or inflation is measured through GDP deflator. But how to calculate this GDP deflator? The calculation is being done by the difference between the nominal and real GDP. The difference between the nominal and real GDP, that is the GDP deflator, that is calculated as nominal GDP divided by the real GDP multiplied by 100. Nominal GDP divided by the real GDP multiplied by 100. Acha, nominal GDP means it counts or it considers inflation or price level of goods and services. When we say real GDP, that adjusts inflation, So GDP deflator is difference between the nominal and the real. Okay. ठीक अछि, GDP deflator. Next देखिबा, which are the following are differences between CPI and WPI in India? Formula ta मन रहिले, nominal GDP divided by the real GDP multiplied by 100. ये होची formula. Okay. GDP concept कोण? GDP होची money value of goods and services, money value of total goods and services produced in the economy during a given period. Money value of goods and services produced in the economy during a given period, that is known as GDP, gross domestic product. Okay. Next देखिबा, which are the following are differences between CPI and WPI in India? Difference आपन कहि छी भी आगुरु difference दुई जन को भितरे already हमें discuss करिचे. CPI includes services, WPI does not. CPI based on retail price or what we call the consumer price, consumer point of view, because consumer does not purchase goods at the wholesale price. Wholesale price रे किए किने retailer किने जे retailer हमको बिके. So consumer always purchases goods at the CPI or the retail prices. तो सिर्फ CPI is based on retail prices, WPI is based on the wholesale prices. CPI covers on the broader basket of goods than the WPI. CPI covers broader basket than the WPI. Broader basket in the sense, आपण कहि परिबे जदियो CPI covers products जो गुडी को used by the consumer, but WPI is having the more product or broader basket of goods. Okay, more basket of goods, but CPI जेहेतु goods and services दुईटी जाक काउंट करूची, so you will consider CPI रे अधिका प्रोडक्ट अछि, but यदि खाली goods को आपण देखिबे ना तो WPI रे सबुटो अधिका थाए. तो सही हिसाब रे ये स्टेटमेंट को आपण इनकरेक्ट कहि परिबे. बाकी A and जो 1 and 2 आपण करेक्ट कहिबे, 1 and 2 करेक्ट कहिबे. ओके, नेक्स्ट देखिबा. नेक्स्ट देखो, CPI WPI फुल फॉर्म. CPI होची कंज्यूमर प्राइस इंडेक्स, जोटा कि इन्फ्लेशन को मेजर करे फ्रॉम द कंज्यूमर पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. WPI होची होलसेल प्राइस इंडेक्स, प्रोड्यूसर पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू रे इन्फ्लेशन को मेजर करे. ओके, which of the following can be considered causes of inflation in India? Causes of inflation, inflation mo आपन कहि steady rise in price of goods and services, that is the inflation. Okay, steady rise in prices of goods and services, that is inflation. Number 1. इडी देखिबा, increase in the fiscal deficit, supply chain disruption due to natural disaster, excess liquidity in banking system, appreciation of Indian rupee. Okay, अच्छा. Increase in fiscal deficit माने कौन? What is fiscal deficit? Fiscal deficit होची जदि layman language रे देखिबे, public expenditure is greater than public अपन करो जो receipt या revenue. Expenditure is greater than the revenue. Obviously revenue रे हमें minus करूचे कोटा borrowing को. दावने government is spending more. So when government is spending more money is coming to people, and people will have demand for goods and services. Okay, so fiscal deficit jate adhika badibo, that means public expenditure is increasing, that means people will have more money to demand more goods and services, that leads to inflation. Supply chain disruption due to natural disaster, for example due to heavy cyclone, heavy flood, there is disruption in the transportation. So the transportation disruption hela, okay, transportation jati disruption hela, then obviously what will happen? Price of goods and services will increase because se jagare timely jinsa pahunchi paribo nahi. So this is one factor. This is the supply side factor in fact. Excess liquidity in the banking system. When excess liquidity in the banking system, that means money supply will increase in the economy. People will have more money. They will demand more money from the bank, or bank will provide money at a very cheaper rate in terms of loan. So people will have more money. They will increase the demand for goods and services. So this is another factor. So 1, 2 and 3, A is the correct answer with respect to increase in inflation. Clear? Appreciation of the Indian rupee is related to what? Apankara jo foreign exchange चैप्टर जो आपनकर अछि बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट को नेकी करेंसी रो अप्रिसिएशन डेप्रिसिएशन दैट इज इन्फ्लेशन सहित आम सेटा लिंक करू नाही बट जदि आपण इंटरनेशनल सिनारियो को जदि देखिबे जदि अप्रिसिएशन ऑफ इंडियन रूपी हुए तेबे आपनकर चांसेस कोन अछि इकोनॉमी रे अप्रिसिएशन ऑफ द रूपी मेक्स import cheaper and reduces inflation. Okay, appreciation of the Indian rupee makes the import cheaper. Import सस्ता हुए कारण appreciation रे export आपनकर कमिबो import आपनकर बढ़िबो काहे की बढ़े ना import आपनकर cheaper हुए सस्ता हुए यदि उल्टा देखिबे depreciation रे कोन हुए export आपनकर बढ़े यानी कि export competitive हुए सस्ता हुए एंड इंपोर्ट आपनकर महंगा हुए ओके अप्रिसिएट्स कौन करे इंपोर्ट को सस्ता कराए दैट मीन्स इफ ए कंट्री इज परचेजिंग गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज फ्रॉम अदर कंट्रीज एट ए चीपर रेट डेफिनेटली डोमेस्टिक मार्केट इन्फ्लेशन कम रहिबो राइट सो 1 2 3 होची आपनकर आंसर ए नेक्स्ट देखिबा A bad monsoon in India can lead to inflation. Bad monsoon in India can lead to inflation. This is the supply side factor. This is the supply side factor. That means goods, I mean the food grains खास करके सिगुड़ी को ठीक से produce होगा नहीं. Supply shortage will be there. So inflation would be in the economy. It reduces agricultural output, disrupts supply, especially of the food items. The monsoon failure means increase in the food prices. Okay, so A is the answer. Both A and R are true. R is the correct explanation of A. Match the following causes of inflation with their description. Demand pull, cost push, imported inflation. Okay, epote achi apanଙ୍କର excess money, rise in production input prices, rise in prices due to costlier foreign goods. So first hochi demand pull inflation and this is demand side factor. So answer would be apanଙ୍କର demand side factor means people will have more money and they are demanding more goods and services. Excess money changes limited goods. Cost push inflation, rise in the production input prices. So rise in the production input prices. That means input prices means supply side. Cost of production will increase. Cost of production will increase. So B2 imported inflation means rise in prices due to costlier foreign goods. Okay, so answer would be A, ABC 1 2 3. Clear? What is the primary cause of demand pull inflation? What is the primary cause of demand pull inflation? Excessive demand in the economy relative to supply. Excessive demand in the economy due to any reason, due to increase in income, let's say, due to increase in taste and preference of the people started demanding more of a particular product. The taste and preference could be reason. Increase in wages due to trade union pressure. This is supply side factor. Cost push you can say. Cost push कारण cost of production बढ़ुची आपनकर. Increased cost of raw material again cost push. Sudden rise in the oil prices globally cost push. Okay, supply side factor. Other than the C, there are supply side factors. AC prices increases during summer. ये आपनकर demand side factor होगा. AC prices increased due to shortage of semiconductor raw materials or microchips. Due to microchips or semiconductor raw materials, that is supply side factor. Okay, so there is a difference. Supply side and demand pull. Clear? Next, which of the following policies may indirectly contribute to inflation? Reduction in repo rate by RBI indirectly contribute to inflation. Reduction in repo rate by RBI, that means policy rate or the cost of borrowing is reduced by the RBI, and subsequently commercial bank will give loan to customers at a lower rate. That means obviously money supply will increase, that will lead to inflation. Increase in the minimum support prices. increase in the minimum support prices यानी कि the government's procurement price of good food grains, let's say. So the minimum support price बढ़ुची, that means government is purchasing at a higher price, or any such private trader is purchasing from the farmer at a higher price. Obviously, they will sell those products in the market to the consumer at a higher price. Okay, and this is supply side factor, increase in the MSP, minimum support price. Higher government expenditure in infrastructure, people will have more money. That means when infrastructure adhika kharcha hoji, automatically money will be circulated in the economy, people will have more money, so they will start demanding more goods and services, is again demand side factor. Removal of import duties on the essential goods. Removal of import duties means the product will be a cheaper one. Imposition of import duties will lead to increase in the prices of that product, that means inflation. Removal of import duties means the reduction of the price, that means inflation will come down. So if you see the answer is 1, 2 and 3 only. Moving to the next. Consider the following effects of inflation. That is, this is important as far as exam point of view. It erodes purchasing power of money. Obviously, you will purchase goods and services at a same price, but in the fewer quantity or the lesser quantity than earlier. Okay, so purchasing power of money also reduces. Benefits borrower at the expenses of lender. Benefits borrower at the expenses of lender. Obviously, yes, borrowers manako pai they have to pay cheaper. Karana inflation जदि बढ़ुची से अनुसार आपनकर रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट बढ़ौनी से आपण आगु जति दउथले जदि इन्फ्लेशन रेट को कंपेयर करिवो ऑब्वियसली आपण कम दउचंदी एबे. सो इट्स बेनिफिट्स फॉर द बोरोअर. इट इंप्रूव्स द रियल इनकम. It improves the real income of fixed salary earner. Absolutely incorrect. Absolutely incorrect. कहीं ना real income जो मन करो जी real यानी कि fixed salary वाला का real income will come down. Suppose a person is earning 15,000 per month. Inflation थिला 3%. जति कि से product afford करी पड़ुतला ना inflation increase to 6% यानी कि almost double. Price of goods and services almost double. तो जति कि से 15,000 रे जति कि से afford करूतला ताठू कम afford करियो. That means real income will come down. Okay. So answer would be 1 and 2. Moderate inflation is sometimes considered good for the economic growth. Moderate inflation is sometimes considered good for the economic growth. That is absolutely correct. Moderate inflation, if you see the current inflation targeting range, that is 4 plus minus 2, that is 2 to 6. 2 to 6, this would be the appropriate inflation, and this minimum inflation is required to grow the economy. Okay, moderate inflation. It encourages spending and investment rather than hoarding money. Moderate inflation leads to encourages spending, encourages investment, encourages producer to produce more. So answer is A. Both A and R are true. R is the correct explanation of A. Match the economic agents, how they are affected by the inflation. Okay. First होची debtors. Debtor जे आपनकर debtor और lender. Lender होची जे लोन देइची, debtor जे लोन नेइची, borrower जोटा. Okay. अच्छा. Debtor होची आपनकर gaining due to repayment in depreciated currency or currency ର value कम हेची due to higher inflation. इटा depreciated in the sense कि value कम हेची, value कम हेची. Okay. Similarly, हमें देखले कौन ना debtor gain due to repayment. तापर अपन देखो तो fixed income earner lose purchasing power, less goods in terms of quantity से purchase करियो. Lender देखो तो lose as real returns decline. Okay. जे lender अच्छी जे पैसा देइची ताको जो interest मिलुची रियल रिटर्न्स तार डिक्लाइन होची यानी कि कम होची. यानी कि इन्फ्लेशन 3% रे भी से इंटरेस्ट नउतला 10,000 या 5% इंटरेस्ट, इन्फ्लेशन 6% भी हलानी सही 5% इंटरेस्ट भी नउची. तो आंसर एठी आपन करो ए ही जिवो. मन रखते बेटा जे बोरोयर था ना से था गेनर, जे लेंडर थाए से थाए लूजर. What is meant by inflation tax? Inflation tax means inflation is obviously not a tax, but it is considered as a tax. Inflation is not a tax, but as a considered as a tax. That means the tax amount to niya jauchi, GST ho, any such product. Similarly, inflation when increases, that affects negatively to our pocket. That means it simply eroded purchasing power of us, of our money. तो सिर्फ तक इन्फ्लेशन टैक्स बोली कुआ जाउची. So what is the meaning of the term inflation tax? से होची the reduction in the real value of money. The reduction in the real value of money held by the public due to inflation. Okay. In a high inflation environment, which of the following may occur? Increase in interest rate by the central banks, reduction in savings by households, shift of investment towards real assets like gold and property. Answer kona bukon. In high inflation environment, which of the following may occur? Increase in interest rate by central bank, that means cost of borrowing will increase to control the inflation. Reduction in saving by household, because now you have to pay more for the same goods and services. Obviously, your savings will drained out. Shifting of investment towards real assets like gold and property. ଆପଣ ଗୋଟେ एग्जांपल देखिए, यदि इन्फ्लेशन अधिका हुए तो हाई इन्फ्लेशन रे धीरे धीरे जेतु सेविंग्स कमिबो, इंटरेस्ट रेट बढ़िबो, इन्वेस्टमेंट कमिबो, इन्वेस्टेड सेंटिमेंट नेगेटिव हबो कारण कॉस्ट ऑफ बोरोइंग बढ़िबो. तो सेतपे आपण स्टॉक मार्केट जनरली देखिबे इट स्टार्ट कमिंग डाउनवर्ड. तो डाउनवर्ड कमिवा स्टार्ट हबो, दैट मीन्स प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी विल बी लेसर by investing in the stock market. So people will shift to the gold and property instead of investing in the stock market. Which of the following are monetary measures to control inflation? Kogudika monetary measures dekhon. Repo rate, that is policy rate, quantitative controlling measure. So this is one. CRR, cash reserve ratio. Repo rate huchi the rate at which RBI provides loan to the commercial bank. CRR huchi cash reserve ratio. That means commercial bank has to reserve or has to maintain a reserve with the RBI. Okay. So a particular reserve ko se maintain koruchi, and cash reserve ratio in the sense that is in terms of cash. Okay. Cash maintain koruchi with respect to its total deposit. So tako ame CRR boli koruchi. Again, it is part of this monetary controlling measures. Reducing government spending, that means reducing public expenditure. This is not monetary measure, rather it is a fiscal measure. An open market operation is again quantitative restriction or quantitative tool with respect to monetary policy. So 1 to 4 are the monetary measures, and 3 is not the monetary measure, that is fiscal measure. So answer is 1 to 4. Okay, A. Tight monetary policy helps controlling inflation. Tight monetary policy यानी कि contractionary monetary policy यानी कि cost of borrowing will increase. Okay, so lesser money with the people and lesser spending in goods and services. It increases money supply in the economy. Obviously, the opposite, decreases money supply in the economy. So A is true, R is false. A is true, R is false. Match the inflation control tools with their types. देखो, monetary policy, change in the repo rate, policy rate जोटा मैं कहूँ, the rate at which commercial banks take loan from the RBI or RBI provides loan to the commercial banks. Fiscal policy, that is increase in the direct tax. Supply side measure, removal of the logistical bottlenecks. A2, B1, C3. What is meant by open market operation? Open market operation hoji, through this instrument, commercial bank can sell and purchase government securities. Commercial bank or any such private investor as well, जो माने कि government securities को open market रे सेल एंड परचेज करि परिबे with the RBI. Okay, so से हिसाब रे C होची आपनकर करेक्ट आंसर. In response to rising inflation, RBI is most likely to inflation जदि अधिका अछि RBI कौन करिवो contractionary monetary policy. Okay, contractionary monetary policy जमती ओपन मार्केट ऑपरेशन होची गोटे क्वांटिटेटिव कंट्रोलिंग टूल. ओके, सेमती सीआरआर, रेपो रेट, एसएलआर ये सब होची आपनकर कोन क्वांटिटेटिव कंट्रोलिंग टूल. सो व्हेन वी से इन्फ्लेशन इज देयर, कॉन्ट्रैक्शनरी मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी, रेपो रेट विल इंक्रीज, सीआरआर विल इंक्रीज. ओके, इटी ओपन मार्केट ऑपरेशन भी आपण देखिबे कोन ना इंटरेस्ट रेट विल इंक्रीज. ओके, दैट मीन्स मनी सप्लाई विल गो डाउन and inflation can be controlled. कारण आमर गोटे क्वांटिटेटिव थियोरी अछि, इट सेज when money supply increases in the economy, price of goods and services increases in the economy, that is known as the inflation. Okay, that is known as the inflation. Clear? So opposite जदि देखिबे deflation अछि तबे सेटा को हमें कहबा expansionary monetary policy. That means government wants, or specifically RBI wants to increase the money supply in the economy. Okay, statutory liquidity ratio SLR जोटा हमें कहूचे, SLR होची commercial bank maintains a certain amount of cash, government securities, gold with itself with respect to its total deposits. Okay, तो ये monetary policy instrument हिसाब रे यूज हुए. government subsidies माने इट होची fiscal policy, so it does not come under the monetary policy, and lower income tax rate is again part of the fiscal policy. Okay, ठीक अछि. तो ये थिला आपनकर टोटल इकोनॉमिक्स रो किछि क्वेश्चन. पुणी नेक्स्ट सेशन रे भी मुई इन्फ्लेशन मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी रिलेटेड आउरी क्वेश्चन नै कि आसीबी. सो फर्स्ट विल कंप्लीट दिस चैप्टर विथ ऑल दोज MCQs, एंड आई थिंक गोटे पर गोटे चैप्टर एमते हमें कंप्लीट करबा इकोनॉमिक्स. ओके, यस, कमर्शियल बैंक्स. फाइन, जो मैंने हमर फाउंडेशन कोर्स जॉइन करबा को चाहूछन प्रीलिम्स मेंस इंटरव्यू फाउंडेशन बैच आरंभ 5.0 यू कैन जॉइन, जोटा कि स्टार्ट होची देखंतु केबेठू 7th जुलाई रु. ओके, 7th जुलाई रु स्टार्ट होची फाउंडेशन बैच. सो कोड यूज करि परबे जे इन लाइव टू गेट द मैक्सिमम डिस्काउंट. एंड दिस इज इंग्लिश एंड हिंदी बैच. आपनकर लाइव क्लासेस रहइबो, रिकॉर्डेड लेक्चर्स गुडी को अवेल करा जिवो, नोट्स मिलेबो, डेली इवालुएशन टेस्ट आपनकर करा जिवो, एसे एनरिचमेंट सेशन अछि, वीकली करंट अफेयर्स सेशन अछि, ओडिसा स्पेसिफिक टॉपिक्स गुडी को कंप्लीटली कवर करा जिवो. ओके, 12+ टेस्ट सीरीज आपन को फ्री रे भी मिलेबो, राइट. एंड यदि फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट रे हमें आपन दी प्रीलिम्स क्लियर करूछन, यू विल बी गेट योर मनी रिफंडेड. आपन को फंड मनी रिफंड मिल जिवो. राजेंद्र आपण चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करि नियंतो, आपण पाखो नोटिफिकेशन आसी जिवो. रतिकांत जेना आपण एठी स्कैन करंतु, आपण इजीली टेलीग्राम जॉइन करि परिबे. एठी डिटेल आपण को अपडेट मिलिबो. इंस्टा रे, फेसबुक रे भी मध्ये आपण जॉइन करि परिबे. आपण जदि क्वेरी किछि अछि, किछि डाउट अछि, कंफ्यूजन अछि, आपण मते पचारि परिबे. सस्मिता, यस, चैप्टर मनी बैंकिंग चलिवो, तापर अपडेट आसीबो यूट्यूब रे, मो ग्रुप रे भी ताको पोस्ट कर देबी, सो दैट आपण जानि परिबे. ओके, एनी अदर डाउट? यस, ये होचे टेलीग्राम चैनल, एडी पीडीएफ फ्रीली अवेलेबल अछि. थैंक यू. ठीक है, लाइक भी करेंगे, कमेंट करेंगे, एंड शेयर मध्य करेंगे अपन फ्रेंड्स मान सहित. जो मैंने जानी पारना सेसन हो एटलिस्ट से तो जानतु. क्लियर? थैंक यू.